What's up, you guys? Alexei Stolyarov here, giving you a post-fight thoughts and analysis on UFC Fight Night Makhachev versus Moises. Alright, so we're going to be starting off with the main card. Typically, in these videos, I'll only be covering the main cards, but if there is a really good up-and-coming prospect in the prelims, then I'll be covering them. But typically it's just going to be the main card. All right, so Billy Quarantillo versus Gabriel Benitez. So, I mean, this really was just a bully beatdown. I mean, Quarantillo outstruck Benitez 2-1. You know, in the later rounds, Gabriel Benitez threw a shot. Got lucky, he clipped Quarantillo, but Quarantillo bounced right back up and continued fighting. Quarantillo landed 3 takedowns. They both had 1 submission attempt, but I mean, really what won Billy Quarantillo the fight was the amount of volume that he was throwing. Because from watching it, it seemed to me like Benitez was just, throwing just to throw, you know what I mean? He wasn't throwing with like bad intentions. And, since Quarantillo just kept coming at him, throwing 2-3 shot combinations, one after another, Benitez really just didn't have an answer for that. And basically it was just covering up most of the time. There was a sequence where Benitez got Quarantillo down to the ground, but that didn't last too long. Quarantillo was able to roll out of that and, survived. And basically Benitez's face by the end of the fight looked like a piece of lasagna. Alright, so next was Rodolfo Vieira versus Dustin Stoltzfus. So, in this fight, I wasn't really sure who was going to win. But, I was just watching, obviously. So, Rodolfo Vieira had something happen to him in his last fight where he became so exhausted, he literally just could not defend himself, and it ended up costing him the fight. And, they were saying how he had to go to therapy because he was so terrified of that happening again. He just really had to talk through that with a therapist and try and get that figured out. Surprisingly, the strikes landed was kind of similar. Rodolfo Vieira landed 49. Stoltzfus landed 67. But it seemed like during the fight, Vieira was just piecing Stoltzfus up. I mean, his jab was so fast. He was in and out of the pocket in no time. And it just looked like Stoltzfus didn't have an answer for Vieira's jab. And Vieira had a couple good combinations, but really it was the jab and then the takedowns that he landed on Stoltzfus. So Stoltzfus didn't land any takedowns. Vieira landed 3. He had 1 submission attempt and, obviously was able to choke out Stoltzfus, winning Vieira the fight. Yeah, I mean, Vieira, he's good. Maybe he could break out into the top 10 in the middleweight division, but I don't see him being, a top 5, maybe a contender for the belt. I think all those people up there easily beat him. People like Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa, obviously Israel Adesanya. And, the other fighters, in the top 5, top 10. But, maybe he could break into the top 10. But, good fight for Vieira. Got himself the win for that. And moving on. So, next fight was Mateusz Gamrot versus Jeremy Stephens. Now, Jeremy Stephens has been on a bit of a slide. He's getting up there in age. He is taking a shitload of damage throughout, his career, especially in the last few fights, which he had, not done so well by getting knocked the fuck out and choked out and everything. I don't see his career getting any better than it is now. I expect him to have maybe 1 or 2 more fights, and depending on whether he wins those, they could possibly cut him from the UFC. Mateusz Gamrot, up-and-coming prospect, finally got onto the main card. Got the win for the fight, obviously. Really not much happened during this fight. I mean, it was an incredibly fast submission. He just totally fucking smoked Jeremy Stephens. Stephens did not have an answer for him. Gamrot, in the first round, was able to get him down to the ground. He only landed 1 strike. There was only 1 strike landed that entire fight, and it was Gamrot. And then Gamrot proceeds to take Stephens down to the ground, makes a submission attempt, and submits Stephens in the first minute of the first round, which was pretty crazy. I don't think I've seen Stephens get submitted like that, so kudos to Gamrot, adding a veteran to his record like that. All right, so next we got Miesha Tate versus Marion Reneau. Miesha Tate, obviously a legend in women's MMA. But when the competition really started expanding, in MMA in general, she just could not keep up. Pretty sure she got knocked the fuck out a few times by Amanda, and she just couldn't beat Ronda. And then I think she hung up the gloves for a while, like 4 or 5 year layoff after that. And then, she came back, obviously, for this one. I didn't know how she was going to do because, ring rust is a real thing. And there's very few people that could take, a 4 or 5 year layoff and come back and still be able to even compete, let alone win. The only person that comes to mind like that is George St. Pierre, but he is literally one of the fucking goats of the sport. Now, Marion Reneau, she's had, a decent amount of fights. She's a vet. Not really. She's not a vet, nah. She's up there in age. So this fight was really just, a flip of a coin because Reneau's age and Tate's layoff, you really just can't, predict what would have happened during that fight. So Miesha Tate outstruck Reneau 3-1, landing 65 strikes on Reneau, while Reneau only landed 25. But really what won Miesha Tate the fight was the takedowns. She was able to land 3 of them throughout the entire fight and just totally control her on the ground, winning her multiple rounds. Miesha Tate did what Miesha Tate does. Back then when she was fighting, she had a takedown heavy game, and she kind of did that for this fight as well. She got a TKO, was beating Renau's head into the canvas, and the ref ended up stopping the fight in the 3rd round, in the 2nd minute of the 3rd round. All right, so the real fucking bread and butter for this fight. Islam Makhachev versus Thiago Moises. Now, we all know how good Islam Makhachev is, obviously, from all the hype he's been getting from, his team, obviously being associated with Khabib. Khabib giving his blessing to him, saying that, he obviously is going to be the new lightweight champion. To be honest with you, he will 100% be the next UFC lightweight champion. But, people often compare him to Khabib, saying that he's Khabib 2.0. He is incredibly good. I mean, in his fight with Thiago Moises, he just beat the shit out of fucking Thiago Moises. Moises is a good fighter as well, but I mean, he is just not even in the same level as Makhachev. I mean, he could not even compete. He was outstruck. He had no answers for the takedowns, for the ground transitions. I mean, this guy, he had that 1,000-yard stare where he's like, holy shit, just get me the fuck out of here. That was a masterclass performance for Makhachev. But with that being said, I think Makhachev and Khabib are completely different fighters. While Islam Makhachev is incredible, I actually think his stand-up is better than Khabib's. But the thing that made Khabib so good was the pressure. I mean, every single fight, the minute that bell rang, Khabib was up in your grill. And he was not giving up ground. He was always taking the center control of the cage and basically pushing the other person back to the cage where he could later secure a takedown and just, beat the shit out of whoever he was fighting or choke them out. And we saw that in his last performance with Justin Gaethje, where he just totally smoked him. And Justin Gaethje is known for his pressure. We're just throwing strikes and just keep coming at you. And he just got smoked. But anyway, back to this fight. So, yeah, I mean, this was just a mauling. Makhachev outstruck Moises 6-1. Now, mind you, Thiago Moises is a pretty decorated striker. He is very well-rounded in that department. And his ground game is very underrated. He has great jiu-jitsu, but I mean, Makhachev was just so good at being able to control the positions, the transitions, and Moises could not get away from Makhachev once the distance had closed. And even when the distance wasn't closed, I mean, Moises would throw shots and Makhachev would just not be there. He was just thrown at air. Moises basically looked like some drunk guy fighting some, decorated mixed martial artist. That's how bad this fight looked. And this shows how good Makhachev is as a fighter. He is extremely well-rounded. He may not have the pressure as Khabib, but, he's a different fighter. And, his record speaks for itself. And I think will only continue to get better from from now. So he outstruck him 6-1, landing 61 strikes, while Moises only landed 13. However, Moises was able to land one takedown, which was pretty surprising. I did not think that Moises would have the capability of taking Makhachev down. Granted, where Makhachev comes from and the people that he is associated with. Makhachev landed 3 takedowns throughout the entire fight, and they both have one submission attempt, but obviously Makhachev being able to go through with the submission, get a rear naked choke, and win the fight in the 4th round, in the 2nd minute of the 4th round. Yeah, so great night of fights. I'm interested to see where Makhachev goes from here. Because, I mean, that division is just murder's row, the lightweight division. You got Justin Gaethje, you got Conor McGregor, you got Dustin Poirier, you got Michael Chandler, Oliveira, which is the champ now, Dan Hooker. I mean, there's just killers after killers after killers. Beneil Dariush, he's going to be, definitely top 5 if he's not now in the top 5. But I'm interested to see, where you guys think Makhachev's career is going to go from here. Like, who do you think that Dana White is going to put him up against next? Dana White said that he wants to make Makhachev versus Beneil Dariush. I personally think that is an excellent fight. That is the one fight that I think will really test Makhachev, because Beneil Dariush's ground game is incredible. He's an extremely strong guy. He always has the right position. He always knows when to make the right transition, and he's never put in a bad, position, which could compromise him. But we know that obviously fights don't go as we think they do all the time, so Makhachev could end up fighting someone else. He's saying that he wants to fight RDA or Tony Ferguson. So just want to know you guys' thoughts. You can leave it down in the comment section. I'd really like the subscribers. Give the video a like or a dislike if you want, and I'll see you next time.